Let's have a go at creating a desktop planter. I'm going to start with the front work plane and create a sketch. Start with a square from the origin. Don't worry about the size when you drag it out because we'll add our dimensions on. It's going to be at 140, so we're starting with the outside part, 140 millimeters tall by 160 millimeters wide. Okay, so you can see that I have not yet changed the dimensions on the workspace units, and that's caused me an issue straight away. So go to workspace units, change it to millimeters and click tick, and all that means now is I'll have to go back into the sketch, edit, dimension this outside one up, click on the dimension that I've already done, change it to 140 millimeters and press enter. There we go, we've got the correct size now, so we're off to a flying start. I'm going to draw a second square inside, or second rectangle, sorry, and the distances that I want to leave are 15, so the timber that we're using is going to be cut into 15mm square section. So with a little bit of maths we can figure this out. So 140 minus 15 is going to leave us with 125, and then on this width here we're going to be 160 minus 30, which is leaving us with 130, and then we just have to even up the spacing by doing 15 on the one side. Click tick, and we're happy with that first one. So let's extrude the U part of that 15 millimeters and press tick. So we've got the outside square shape. Now the inside square shape, we're going to go on the front again. We're going to start a new sketch. We're going to drag out a rectangle in between these two, so you can snap it between the orange parts, make it really easy for you. And then the only dimension you need to worry about is the height. The height of this is going to be 110, which should leave a 15mm gap at the top, and it's already started 15mm higher, which is why it's considerably smaller. Draw your square in again, and let's repeat the process. So this height is going to be 95, we're taking 15 away from the 110. The width is going to be now, it's 130 minus 15 on each side again, so we're at 100, and all we have to do is make sure that this dimension here, let's try that one again, the dimension between these two parts is 15, so we're even on both sides. Just checking that that's all looking right, it's lining up in the correct places, which is all good. Let's click tick, extrude this part. Once it is a new part, make sure it's not new, we don't want it to add to the other one, and 15 millimeters, click tick. Okay, so we've got those two parts created. We want a hole going through that we can put a bolt through so that they can pivot. So on this outside here, we're going to create a sketch. We're going to draw a circle on the side there. Let's give that a diameter. So I'm going to zoom in and just look at it from the right to make it a little bit easier to do. We're going to give that diameter, sorry, let's try that again. Dimension onto there, diameter of 8. In fact, we'll make that a little bit smaller. Let's make that a 6mm diameter, and the distance from there to the top. Remember, we've got a 15 gap, and then we want it even, so we want 15 plus then 7.5 down, so we're even from both sides and the top. So we're going to go 22.5 millimeters down. Okay, so you can see that circle's positioned fairly well down from the top. We just need to make sure it's even from both sides as well. So that's going to be a distance from the center to the edge, 7.5. Even if it looks right, always put a dimension in to be 100% sure you know where it is. We can finish that. Now let's extrude. We want the circle, we want it to remove, and our merge scope is going to be with both parts. So when it goes through both, instead of being blind, we're going to go through all. And if we zoom out, let's see if this does work. It's gone through part 1, but it doesn't look to have made a hole in part 2, so we will need to redraw it. I was hoping that it might go straight through both, but we weren't lucky enough for that. If we look at that from the front and hover over extrude through, you can see where it has gone through and where it's missing. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll just hide part 1. We're going to zoom in on the end here of part 2, start a sketch on this face, draw your circle, and add your dimensions as we did before. Diameter 6mm, 7.5 from the edge, 7.5 from the top. Click tick, extrude, click on a circle, remove through all, and then click tick. We can unhide part 1 now, and all being well, when we zoom out and rotate round, it all lines up nicely. We can see through the whole part, which is where our nut and our bolt will go through. When we animate this together, those two parts should rotate together and rotate away from one another as well. Okay. The next part now is to put the holder for the plant pot through this top part. So we're going to create another hole. So on the right hand side here, sketch, we're going to draw a circle, zoom in. That dotted line that we had there was making sure it was in the center, which is quite useful. This is going to be a 3mm diameter hole, and we want it nice and evenly spaced, so 7.5 from that top. Click tick. Extrude, click the circle, remove, and again through all, so it goes through both halves. Save yourself some work further down the line. That part's done. The next part now is putting the bar straight through. So to do this, we want the bar to stick out from this side and out from that side, so we can fit a threaded nut on the end. So to do that, we're going to create a plane that is just 6mm away from this edge. So I've clicked on this face here. I'm going to click on plane, and if we look at it from the front, you can see the gap that it's leaving there, and we want that just to be 6mm away. Okay, so we can see that 6mm plane is now in place. Click tick and confirm it. And on that right hand side, if we look at it from the right hand side, we're going to use plane 1 to draw our circle, which is going to be the bar, and it's going to line up with that circle that already exists. So if we just draw that in any size for now and start to restrict it with our dimensions. And we can remember this is 7.5 from the top, 7.5 from this side as well. Okay, so we can actually see there that that 7.5 split is slightly different, which insinuates to me I made a mistake on the last sketch. So I'm going to click tick. I'm going to go back into sketch. You might not have made this mistake on yours, so just double check. I can go edit sketch, and yes, you can see that I've measured from the bottom of the circle, not the center. So I'm going to delete that measurement out and put a new one in. It should be from the center of the circle to that edge, should be 7.5. Click tick, that will all update, and now that sketch that I've just done should line up nicely. There we go, that's much better. So let's just position it in a 3D view so we can see what's going on when we extrude. Click extrude, and we're going to extrude sketch 6. That's going the wrong way, so we can flip that to go the other way. And now if we just think about the dimensions for a second, we can make sure it all fits in. So the width that we created, the original part, was 160. And we want that bar to go all the way through, plus the 6 sticking out of either end. So it's going to be 172 in total. So in the depth here, 172mm, and click tick, and you can see it's sticking out slightly from both ends. We put a nut on there just to hold it into position. The last part now is creating the bars, and this is where we can be a little bit creative. So I'm going to do something relatively simple, but if you want to change it, this is a point you can have a little bit of fun with it as well. So I'm going to do it on the front work plane, and I'm going to view it from the front as well. Okay, so we're just going to zoom, get it centrally fitting onto the screen. I'm going to start a new sketch, and I'm going to draw a line straight up the center that I'm going to restrict with some dimensions, and that's going to be the line that my whole vase rotates around. So that's kind of the central line of it, or the axes, the central axes of it. Let's dimension that. So I want that to be let's say 130 tall, and I want it to be in the middle. So from the origin to the line, we're going to set that distance at 80, so I know it's exactly in the center. I'm then going to draw a circle on here. That's obviously too big, so let's restrict this to maybe 75 diameter. It's coming up quite tall, so I might actually make that 130 just down to 100. So it's only just coming above 110. I prefer that, that's better. And I'm going to draw a rectangle now down this side, just like that. So you can start to see the shape that I'm going for. Let's add some dimensions on. Let's make this 15. Doesn't matter that it's coming further into that, that's exactly what I want. So now I can use the scissors tool. I only want to keep 1/2 of the vase for the revolve that I'm about to do, and I can chop all of them other parts away. So that's the vase shape that I'm going for. I'll click tick, and I've got that lining up. Okay, so now we're going to go for the revolve. So if I click the revolve tool, I want to revolve this sketch, and then the revolve axis is the line that we drew in first. So click revolve axis, click on that line, and you can see it shoot all the way around, which looks just as we want. In fact, the plane front was slightly off, so we might go back and change that a little bit later on. I'm not in a rush to do that at the moment. We don't want to add it to the part, we want it as a new part of its own, and I can click tick. We want it to be hollow, so we're going to use the shell tool. When we're hollowing it, you can't tell that anything's been done yet, so we've got to click on where we want the hole to be, and that's going to be at the top. And you can select your wall thickness. We're going to make it 2 millimeters thick, and click tick. So you can see now that if we rotate that around, you can see all the way in. To get this now in the center and get that bar going through the middle, the front work plane is sat, if I click on the right here, you can see the front work plane is sat at the back of those two wooden parts. So we need another work plane that's in the center, and then we can change the work plane the vase was created on. So let's create the new work plane first. So click on front, and we did this before, click on plane at the top, and we're going to offset it 7.5, which is half the thickness of the wood. And you can see plane 2 is sat just in front. It's only a tiny difference, but it will make, being pedantic and making sure it lines up is what this is really all about. We can now go on to sketch 7, which is that one there. Plane 2 will need to have been created before sketch 7. Otherwise, when we go to edit it, it will forget everything that's happened after. So sketch 7, and we're going to edit. And you can see here, sketch plane, we can change. So if we close front plane, we can actually select plane 2 and click tick. And now when that's done, you can see it's now going perfectly through the center. So that is a desktop planter pretty much created. All that we really want to do now is assemble it in the assembly view and start to change the materials, which we'll do in the next tutorial.